channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things, or sometimes, like today, I talk about none of the above and give you updates on my health. If you watch my vlogs, then you probably know a lot of this stuff already, but this is sort of just like a clean and tidy way of having all of this information in one go. Last year, wasn't it? 2021? Yes. Last year I started the journey to take my health a lot more seriously. This was really important to me because I am somebody who passes out randomly, and also I had a lot of mental health issues that I needed to have addressed. So, with regards to the mental health, if you didn't know, if you haven't watched any of the other things, I got diagnosed with ADHD, which changed my entire life. I have a bunch of different videos about that. I have like a video just about ADHD entirely, and then I also have my other health updates where I talk about that a little bit. I have not increased my medication has not changed, and that's all the same. I have returned to therapy, but that is for completely different reasons. As some of you may or may not know, as you get into a better and safer and more secure place, you start to kind of unpack some things that you didn't realize were traumatizing until later on. Also, I want to give my regular disclaimer: if you hear animal sounds or sounds as a whole in the background, I do live in a zoo and I don't have any control over the animals in my life. I'm sorry in advance. The other thing that I really needed to look into, like I said before, was my passing out. Now I know the actual term for that, which is pre-syncope. I was not actually passing out. I was almost passing out, and that there is actually a difference. Sometimes I would pass out, but not as frequently as I was thinking. What was happening was pre-syncope, which passing out is just called syncope. So pre-syncope is what happens before passing out. Syncope is the actual fainting, passing out episodes. I very rarely would lose consciousness. I would just have all of the symptoms of pre-syncope. For that, it definitely has been a bit of a journey. I first had an appointment with a neurologist because we wanted to confirm I was not having seizures, so I had a sleeping EEG. If you watch the Reading Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron in 24 hours video, that is me staying up for 24 hours so that I could sleep during this sleeping EEG. An EEG is basically where they have you with a bunch of electrodes, that's the electrode nodes around your head, and it's awful and annoying because it's in your hair, and also you can't have any hair product in at all, which is like a problem for someone with my hair texture. And that, and then you sleep, and they just monitor the electric waves in your brain the whole time. I'm not having seizures. So when we ruled that out, my neurologist was like, okay, I need you to have a tilt table test and talk to your primary care doctor. So I talked to my primary care doctor, and they had me have what's called an echocardiogram. An echocardiogram is basically, think about the ultrasounds that pregnant people have, and it's that, but for your heart. And it was probably the coolest test I've ever had. I got to like literally look at my heart. I guess that's how birthing persons feel when they have an ultrasound. It's like you're looking at your organ like doing a thing, and like, I guess, I don't know, it's not the same because it's not a person that I'm making or anything, but it's still my organ, and that was kind of cool. But that came back, and they said I had probably one of the healthiest hearts that they had seen in someone my age ever, which is great and all, except it doesn't answer what's going on. So they still needed me to have the tilt table test and or an MRI. I was not going to schedule the MRI because the MRI would have cost me about $1,200, and I just couldn't afford to drop that. And then as I was in the process of like looking at costs for other tests to get done, a piece of my wisdom tooth fell out, and so then all of my focus on my health had to be on my dental care, which was actually not supposed to happen until way later in the game. So I had to have an emergency extraction of my wisdom tooth, and then I had multiple like cleanings done to help the health of my gums, and I had 16 cavities filled, I think. A lot, just a lot, 8 or 16, one or the other, but it was like even numbers top and bottom and left and right. Had that done, then had all of my wisdom teeth extracted. I still need to go and get Invisalign, but because they think that might be a part of the problem, I also have TMJ, that's what that joint's called, but I have issues with my jaw, and we think part of it might be because of my bite. but I haven't had time to do that because that'll cost me $5,000. Dental care is expensive, and having the wisdom teeth extracted costs $800, so it would have been cheaper if I didn't want them to put me to sleep, but who wants to be awake for that? Anyway, didn't have time to go get all of those other tests done. I now have had the tilt table test done finally a year later. So I went and met my cardiologist for the first time because the person who did the echocardiogram wasn't my cardiologist. And he is a fantastic doctor. I really appreciate him. His office is horrible to find, and the instructions on like the walls and stuff is miserable, and every time I go something is different. Like they're doing construction and a different thing is closed, and that's very frustrating, but okay. When you go to this cardiologist, they do an EKG right off the bat. I've had lots of EKGs done. I don't even include them when I'm talking about my heart health because I've had a lot of them done. They've been done a lot of the time since I was young because I've been having these pre-syncope episodes my whole life, so I've had several EKGs done. And nothing's ever shown up on them, as far as I'm aware. My doctor that I went to prior to my moving to the city, like prior to my moving my doctor's offices to the city though, did lie to me about a lot of my medical results, and I didn't know that until I actually got access to those medical results, so anyway. That EKG did show strange behavior, which is very exciting for me. I told the doctor my history, my medical history, all of my history. I told him the different tests that I had done already prior to coming here to the doctor. I showed him my blood pressure results because I had both the results from the doctor's office for whenever I go see them, because I see them once a month, and then also the results from my own blood pressure monitor that I have that syncs to my phone. And I use that kind of once a week, definitely not enough, but I use it, and I do my best. And he took that information into account, and he basically said, hey, this sounds like POTS, and we're gonna treat you for POTS, but I have to do a couple of other tests before I can diagnose you with this. And I was like, okay, cool. And I've suspected that that's what was wrong this whole time, but I'm not gonna, when it comes to my heart, I didn't really want to diagnose myself with anything until I had more information. So he had ordered a heart monitor for me to wear for 5 days, and then also a tilt table test for me to have done. That part was interesting because my primary and my neurologist had both ordered a tilt table for me. My cardiologist said I don't do them or like them, and they are phasing them out because they are kind of unreliable and they often end up in negative results, which isn't indicative of the actual, what's actually going on. And he was like, so that's not really fair to the patient. He was like, but because two of your doctors have ordered it and it's probably good for the sake of insurance, I'm going to have you go to this other cardiologist who does them and have it with his office. Which was really cool, actually, because a lot of the time I feel like doctors, I have had doctors where I'll tell them my this specialist said this, and they'll be like, well, I'm not doing that. They laugh it off, they shrug it off, they don't think, they dismiss it, and this doctor was clearly willing to work with my medical team, which was really cool. I wore the heart monitor for 5 days and it irritated the fuck out of my skin. I personally marked 3 events, so you had a phone that you could just mark, yes, I've had a heart event, whatever. I marked 3 events in that 5 day, and they marked 12. My heart does a couple of strange things. First, it pre-beats sometimes, which technically would be considered an arrhythmia, but to have something considered an arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat, is that it has to happen, it has to beat irregularly, regularly. So yeah, anyway. The second is that my heart is overreactive. Basically, my heart is fucking dramatic as hell. My heart rate jumps around a lot, which I knew. That wasn't a surprise to me. However, I did not know that that is probably what's causing... I knew my heart felt weird a lot of the time, but I didn't know that was likely why I was having these pre-syncope or syncope episodes, because my blood pressure was relatively stable most of the time. It was low a couple of times, but it was relatively stable most of the time, which is what made all of this confusing, because everyone had told me that to have a syncope episode, to have a pre-syncope episode. It's about like your blood pressure and the way it communicates with your heart or vice versa, and so your blood pressure drops. Mine doesn't, so that was confusing to me. So I then went and had the tilt table test. With the overreactive heart though, and being told that that's likely what was causing my pre-syncope, the doctor prescribed me with beta blockers and also told me that I need to drink more water, like an obscene amount of water, and then also up my sodium intake, which was hilarious because this is really common for people who don't eat gluten. They crave salt a lot more. I think it's like there's like less processed foods that you're having. I don't really know. I don't know why it happens, but I have always craved salt and put salt on everything, and I feel better when I eat salty foods, and I know that about myself. And it often helps my migraines, which, like, now adding all of this up, I'm like, okay, I was right then. But I was telling my husband, I was like, so before you tell me to worry about my sodium and lowering my sodium, I'm supposed to be increasing it, so what now? So basically, like, electrolyte drinks like Propel and Gatorade, those kinds of things, adding those into your water and then just drinking a bunch of water is what they wanted me to do. So I started doing that, and I started taking the beta blockers, and the beta blockers worked. I take metropropol or something. Editing me is gonna have to find it and spell it because I can't pronounce it. And I take 25 milligrams cut in half. I'm supposed to take them as needed, which is what I do, but mostly because if I took it every single day, it fucks my sleep. Super heavily fucks my sleep. So, like, Adderall didn't even fuck my sleep as badly as these beta blockers do. I do not sleep. There was like one day where I just like slept for 2 hours, and I was like, all right, well, guess I'm awake now. And then lack of sleep makes my heart rate act worse, so I needed to take more. Like, I needed to take meds again. So, very tricky. I had to figure out the balance between taking them and not taking them, and like checking the weather ahead of time, because weather plays a big role on what my heart rate does, it seems like. I will say though that it helps a lot. I didn't realize a couple of things. The reason that I was getting so hot all of the time, like hot flushes, like I felt like I was going to throw up, I was so hot, like dripping sweat, was literally because of my heart rate going nuts for no reason. And I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean by it going nuts for no reason and how that looks, but that was making me hot. And why I get so hot in my sleep is because of this. And my heart rate jumps all over the place. And I also was super tired because of it. I didn't realize like how exhausting it is to have your heart rate do what mine does. So I went to then have the tilt table test. I did not take my beta blockers that day because I wanted the most accurate results, so I didn't take the beta blockers. And a tilt table test essentially is checking to see two things: if your heart rate increases when you tilt up, and then also if your blood pressure drops. But to get a positive result, you have to pass out, and also your blood pressure has to drop. I did not pass out, my blood pressure did not drop, because as I mentioned earlier, I don't have issues with my blood pressure. So lady straps me in, whatever. That sounds scary. Let me explain what a tilt table is if you're ever thinking about having it. So, or ever need to have one. You lay flat, and there's like a board at the end that you put your feet against, and then they strap you down, which is can be a little bit anxiety inducing depending on somebody's personal traumas. It isn't tight, but the part of that could be because I'm a smaller person. And then it very slowly tilts you 80 degrees, which is about how most people stand. Most people don't stand at 90 degrees, so, and then you just stand there for 30 minutes and do nothing, which was weird. That was interesting, and I tell this story in a vlog, but the lady kind of was watching and kept coming and manually checking my heart rate and manually checking my blood pressure, because what was happening was my resting heart rate was about 72 when she had me laying flat, and then when she had me up, it spiked up to 80, and then it spiked up to 90, and then it spiked up to 130, and it was just bouncing around between about 80 and 130. Like, it would drop and be there for a little bit, and then it would slowly increase back up to 130, and then it would drop down, and it did that the whole time. all 30 minutes. And at one point the nurse was like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "No, not at all. Why?" She's like, "Does it feel like your heart's racing to you?" And I was like, "Oh, no more than usual." And she looks at me and she goes, "What do you mean no more than usual?" And I was like, "Oh, my heart sometimes is overreactive, apparently. So no more than usual." The nurse basically explained to me that, one, she had never seen that happen before until table test, and then two, that while it's not dangerous because it's not going 80 to 130 like with no, like it's not just going straight, it's increasing in increments, it's still not normal. The other part of that was non-normal was the fact that my blood pressure stayed the same. What happens when your heart rate increases is, like for exercise or whatever, normal heart rate increases, is that your blood pressure is also supposed to rise with it. Not a lot, but your heart rate is supposed to go up a little bit and then lower back down when you're... So that's why sometimes people can have an adrenaline rush or whatever and their blood pressure is high and everything, and then when they'll like drop and like get dizzy and stuff when that adrenaline drains out, and part of that is because your blood pressure is dropping. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, this is just shit that I know, and some of it could have been disproven by the time from between now and when this posts, so just do your own research. Thank you. But that was the other weird thing, was that my heart rate, or that my blood pressure just, loyal bitch, that did not move. So, I have officially been diagnosed with POTS. Woohoo. POTS stands for, and I wrote it down because I'm an idiot, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And that implies that from sitting to standing, your heart rate increases. Tachycardia, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, is the medical term for heart rate increase. Postural, right? Movement, a posture change. Orthostatic is, I don't know what that word means, and then syndrome is a bunch of symptoms. So the reason they went ahead and diagnosed me with POTS is because it is the most easily recognized diagnosis and the most commonly recognized diagnosis. However, my cardiologist doesn't necessarily think that my cardiologist is like, this is what we're doing right now and this is what we're treating you for, but it might actually be IST, but we don't have enough data. So they do want to do a little bit more testing if I need it, but because the treatment is working, it's kind of like, treatment is working, do I need more answers? I don't know. IST is inappropriate sinus tachycardia, which means that your heart rate's stupid as fuck and just goes up for no fucking reason, which sounds closer to what I have, but they'd have to like essentially look at my heart while the heart rate is in and look at the valves. And because my echocardiogram came back as like my heart being totally fine, it's something that they would have to be watching for like 30 minutes or more. And I would also have to be like standing instead of laying down to see if that matters, and it would take a lot, or wear a heart halter for longer than 5 days, which my skin is super sensitive to those things, so it would just be really tricky, and yada yada yada. It's a lot of things, and then insurance may not cover it either, so I'm fine with just being treated. I don't necessarily need answers. My mother is not the same way, and she was like, we can get those tests done. And I was like, I don't want to. So the next steps at this current point are to look into Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. I have had joint issues my entire life since I was a small child. I have hypermobility in almost all of my joints. My knee used to randomly pop out of place and it would pop itself back in because it was that loose. It still does this, just not as much as it did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, the doctor told my mother that I, when I'm older, should get this checked. Like I should get checked for Ehlers-Danlos. I did not know this. I thought I was just gonna have to have surgery as an adult, which is the only memory I have from those events, was them saying, oh, to ever fix this, you'll need to have surgery. I was like, no, and that was the extent of that for me. Yeah, no one told me that I was supposed to go get this checked as an adult, so This requires, I think, a genetic test. I don't really know, but there is like a prerequisite, like, do you fit these symptoms? Okay, we'll go give you this test. I fit all of the symptoms, so that's super fun. I love that for me. And the reason that that's the next step is because Ehlers-Danlos and POTS, or even IST, go together hand in hand. So ideally, the thing with POTS and also with IST is that they don't know what causes them. And it's different for everybody, actually. And long COVID is a good explanation of what POTS feels like, apparently. And Ehlers-Danlos is one of those things that could cause POTS or IST. So if you treat Ehlers-Danlos, then you don't have to treat the POTS or IST, and you're good to go. And the reason that I would like to not be on beta blockers for the rest of my life is because beta blockers slow your heart rate down, great, but they also lower your blood pressure. Not great, because my blood pressure is normal to low. Low to normal, whatever. It's never lower than the normal, but it's on the low end of normal. Does that make sense? So I don't need it to be lowered, and it could be dangerous if I lower it too much by accident. So if we treat what's causing my heart rate to be insane, then I don't have to take the beta blockers anymore, and I'm not at risk for lowering my blood pressure to a dangerous degree. That's the health update. That's the 1 year health update. I have many, many answers and also many more questions and tests to have done. I am feeling better than I have in a very long time physically. There was a little while there where my health was very bad and I was very nervous about it, and my husband and I were very nervous about it, and we had to have lots of conversations, honest conversations about like, what are we gonna do if this happens again, if my heart acts up, or whatever we want to call it, if my health acts up and I can't go do extracurricular activities and we have kids, or I can't do X, Y, and Z and I need you. And so, you know, with getting married, we have done a lot of me educating him on my own health records and how to obtain them, and my insurance and how to get that information, and what to do when and how and whatever. And he's always been very well educated on my own health, but this is another degree of it because we're now married, so he legally has access to this information and he's legally my next of kin. And so it is important and vital that he has that information. So my mom is still listed on a lot of things though, in case he has any questions, and I am passed out. So that's it. That is the health update after a year. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It is not like my normal content, but I did promise that I would continue to keep everybody updated, and this is just kind of streamlining all of the things that I might say in a vlog offhand and putting it in one video. So yeah, out of 1 year of looking into my health, I got 2 diagnoses, another possible diagnosis, and treatment for all of the things that's working really well. And I lost 4 teeth out of it, so I mean, I didn't lose them. I have them in a box back there, actually. They let me take them home, which was cool. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, I'm sorry. I don't plan on making another one for another 6 months or more, actually. I probably won't update again until I have more information, like update in this kind of format, until I have more information. But that's it. I'm gonna go. What was I gonna say? Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe and share if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. Turn notifications on. I know that it's hard to know when things are posted and hard to remember when things are posted because the YouTube home feed, I have people I'm subscribed to and I literally never see them on my YouTube home feed, so I have to like seek them out. So yeah, don't forget to turn that notification bell on. I post every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every single week without fail. And that's it. Don't forget to take your meds, drink your water, and do something today to take care of yourself. Like taking beta blockers. No, I'm just kidding. Alright. Okay, thanks. Bye.